My name is Jonathan Michael Powell. I was a military police officer. I served 2 tours in Baghdad, a long-term tour in Germany, and also in Georgia. I left the service because I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, an anxiety disorder related with combat stress, and major depressive disorder, more of a chronic form of depression. I definitely think about my brother every day. His name was Bryan Addison. Everyone always talked about his smile brightening up a room. He was laid back, easygoing, but a bit of a worrywart. Aside from my mother and father, he was the closest person to me on this earth. Well, Bryan took his life on February 17th, 2011. Bryan's cause of death was listed as blunt force trauma to the skull. It was caused by a fall from a significant height, specifically from the cliffs in Gravelly Bluff. The kid loved hockey. He was what I would personally consider an all-star goalie. We held a memorial for Bryan at All-American Ice Hockey Rink. There we set out the urn that we had made for him, his many custom-made hockey helmets. And it was always kind of Bryan's calling card as a goalie, that everyone knew he had some of the coolest hockey helmets on the ice. Trophies, a lot of the trophies that are here. I put a slideshow together of all the different pictures of him, both growing up, going to school, and playing hockey. My relationship with Bryan was, in the beginning, before the service, was incredibly close. When I went into the military, I believe would have left him with feelings of abandonment. But when I came home, I found out that he was actually proud that I was off doing what I was doing. Honestly, at first I thought it was going to be a bit more separate, but it was a reconnection, rekindlement of an old relationship. Although I think at some level he did feel that level of abandonment. I'd come home around December 2009. I lived with my parents just on the road here for about 3-4 months, and then my brother and I moved in together here. When I first came home, he was consuming large quantities of alcohol and other different types of party narcotics. I'd gone over to the place he was living at and observed a lot of this type of activity. And while I was there, I told him, hey, I got to move out of the parents' place here soon. Why don't we move in together? And this is also something we talked about growing up as kids, that one day we would have a place together. And so we probably talked about it one day and did it the next. My brother and I lived here for almost a year, from May 2010 until February 2011. Bryan and I living together was initially just like it was before I left for the military. We had a lot of good times. We hung out all the time. We talked and talked and talked for hours. Sometimes we talked for easily 12 hours or more straight, just sitting right in here talking about everything. Bryan was having a lot of troubles with many things: money, work. He had friends who betrayed him, co-workers who betrayed him, family who betrayed him. And I think at some point all of it added up to just more suffering than he could bear. There were several warning signs. He specifically spoke of suicide often. Not to say that we didn't take any action. There was a moment when I did contact the authorities, and they apprehended him and transported him to St. Anthony's Medical. They gave him Haldol. Honestly, I think that was probably the worst thing that could have happened. After that, he didn't talk about it as much, but I knew it was still in his mind. But I wasn't about to tie him down to the trailer. That particular day, it was early morning. He had called off work because he was sick, and he was sitting on a couch. He said he asked if I wanted to go with him to the park that's right over here across the street, and I told him that I was actually going to sleep, to take a nap, and maybe we could do it some other time. And he said, sure, no problem. And when I woke up, he wasn't here. Initially, I believed he could have been saved, that there was some mistake I made or some influence from somewhere else. But now that I've had time to process the loss, honestly, I do believe it was his fate. In the end, I think he would have made the same decision no matter what any of us did. I expected a note or a letter or something written to me, an explanation of why he'd done what he'd done, but instead I found that I was left with his journal, the diary that I bought for him to help him sort his thoughts out, with some insight into some of his more personal thoughts. I also kept his life's work of hockey, his trophies, his trophy case. My parents keep a portion of his ashes at home, and they're presented next to his custom hockey helmets. He also left his car to me, which for a while I dabbled with the idea that he had made a mistake and slipped and fell and didn't intend to die, until I noticed the title and it said transfer on death, and I knew it was a definite decision on his part. When we were all very young, we discussed how we would all want to be buried, and my parents made it very clear that they wanted to be cremated and placed in a particular lake, which happens to be exactly what we did with Bryan. The majority of the time, I'm not even sure if I am coping or not. I would say without my military training, my brother's death would have derailed my life completely. Being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and a depression disorder, my brain's been filled with memories of warfare. His death definitely reignited all of that. The only way a person can move forward after a tragedy like this is to be persistent. I know that if I don't, I'll only fall into the same trap that he fell into. You could live in that moment forever if you let yourself. I think about him every day, but every day it's positive memories, and it's only maybe once a week that I actually have something negative creeping in my mind. The only way to move forward is to keep driving on, because you must. If you don't move forward, you'll be trapped in the past forever.